at that point, you're not there to play it safe. Like if you're not taking risks, you're not competing.
They're empowering, you know. I mean, anybody who's done a CrossFit workout, you finish your CrossFit workout and you're like, I'm on top of the world.
Yeah.
Like a hunger for competition and like that super intense structure, routine. I still had that desire.
Listen to the way people feel and the motivations for doing the things that they did. It was like they were describing me to a T.
I'm not trying to solve everything for you, but I know that sometimes you just need somebody to listen.
Learned the most is how to fill my cup by filling others.
Welcome to the Hungry Dog Barbell Podcast. Join me as I talk with passionate people about their life's failures and successes, and most importantly, what keeps them hungry for more.
Well, and like when I was talking to my brother about the design, like I was like, you know, people do these fundraiser shirts and they're so specific to the event that like nobody ever wants to wear them again. I was like, I just want a shirt that looks really cool that people will want to wear. Cause like if they're going to spend money on it, it might as well be something that they're going to get use out of.
Because this was a shirt for a fundraiser. I don't remember now.
It was my semifinals fundraiser.
Oh, that's dope, dude. Well, you know, I'm glad I supported you for that. I just remember like at this point now, because that was what 5-6 months ago. Yeah, that, like you were putting on a shirt. I was like, hell yeah, I'm gonna support my friend. You know,
I love that.
But I guess that could lead me into my first question, like right off the bat. Are you at the point where you're like seeing yourself a brand? And did that like go into that with like making the shirt? Because like that's important, right? Like I don't want to have this be like just for. It's cool to have a moment in time, but like just for a moment in time, I want this to be something like people can support me all the time with. You know? Do you see yourself like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've definitely had a shift towards that over the past couple months.
Yeah.
You know, even when I was talking with my brother about the shirt design, so he's a tattoo artist. He owns his own tattoo shop. He runs his own business. And he, you know, a couple years ago was basically in the same position as me in terms of like trying to turn himself and his passion into a business. And so I've had a lot of conversations with him about that, about like how you turn yourself into a brand, because that's like, if you look at elite level CrossFitters, that's basically what it is at this point. Like you have to become your own brand. And that's how people are successful in this sport and, you know, get and maintain the sponsorships that allow them to continue on in this sport, since we don't necessarily have any other paying options currently to do this as a career.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. What up, dogs? Welcome back to the Hungry Dog Barbell Podcast. Yada yada yada. We got Ellia Miller here for like the 25th time, some shit like that. She does a whole bunch of stuff. She's really cool and she's funny. She still probably hasn't seen Star Wars, but we're gonna forgive her. Ellia, how are you?
I'm good. We've had this discussion. I've technically seen Star Wars. I just wasn't fully mentally with it.
Technically, I'm also a games athlete too, because I have shirts that say CrossFit Games on it, and I work out with those shirts on. Oh my god, there's too many movies now too, and what's really crazy is that in today's world, they're transferring to like the shows are becoming even better, and like I'm a huge nerd. It's too much for me to keep up with now, so like. I forgive people. I get it. You put on a movie sometimes, watch it, and that's it. Like,
yeah, right.
You don't need to go see all those movies. Like someone was like, yo, it's Harry Potter season. And I'm like, yeah, I'd love to sit down and watch them. I have so much to do. That's 25 hours of my life that I have to give up right now, you know?
Dude, there's so many movies and shows that everybody's like, oh, you got to watch these. And like, I really, really want to, because I love movies. I love good TV shows. Like that's my jam. Right. But I just don't have the time and the mental energy for it right now. Like when I turn Netflix on at the end of the night, I'm watching like trashy reality TV because I don't really have to pay attention to it.
Yeah.
And I can like do other things, which sadly at this point is mostly like write an Instagram caption or make a new reel.
Oh my God. It's so, I was just reading about this girl yesterday saying that Instagram threw off her schedule, like for post. And I'm like, yo, I know I need to get to that. And it's just like, I try to do it for KOP, but like doing it for my personal and Hungry Dog is like, oh my God, so much right now. And then here's a question. Where do you get like your content from if it's not like competitions and stuff like that? Like the content that you post?
Really bad quality cell phone videos.
Oh my God, what else you gonna do? You know, we can't all freaking have the camera crew the whole time.
Yeah, I wish that I had like people around that were good at that stuff. And like there's a couple people at the gym that are pretty decent with a camera. So like
Yeah.
UCAN launched a new product a couple months ago when they launched the new pineapple flavor of the Edge packets. And so I grabbed the guy that does the social media for our gym and I was like, hey, can you take some pictures for me? I need some pictures of this new product to post. And he got some pictures and they were just cell phone pictures, but they worked.
Right.
And they're at least a little bit higher quality than the normal stuff that I get on my
Potato
cell
cell phone. Yeah, I feel that.
Front
And
camera videos, yeah.
Oh, for me, it's really bad here because like we have bad lighting, and then when we can't open the doors, like in the winter time, it's just like, all right, we got 4 months of videos looking like this, you know?
Yep.
4 months of potato videos. It's
yeah,
crappy.
well, and like when I try to do stuff at home, I don't know if you can tell from this video, but my house is very orange on camera.
Yeah.
And so like anytime I try to post about like, especially when I'm trying to post about food, like when I try to post for functional eating and things like that, like I'm like on my phone trying to filter everything, trying to make it not look orange, but
Right.
everything just looks orange.
That's what it is here. Literally like yellow orange tint, and it's just like
Yeah.
cell phone camera sucks.
Yeah. Oh,
Cell
man.
phone cameras suck so much. So August, when the games ends, that's like a reset for a lot of people, right? That's
Yeah.
like off season or revamping back up to start training for things. Did you sit down and write out all these comps that you've done since then, back then? Or did you kind of be like, I want to rest and then jump into stuff? I feel like you were in that state. I feel like you were telling me I'm going to rest for a little bit.
Yeah. So the idea was, have a pretty decent off season and
Right.
really just focus on, making improvements. And then things would pop up here and there. I think the first competition I did back was Monster Games. And that was
solo or partner?
So that was individual this year. I had done it partner last year and they introduced an individual division this year, but that qualifier was in January. So I did the qualifier before the open even happened and I qualified for the individual competition. So that was kind of like, if I don't make the games, I'll do Monster Games because it was like 2 weeks before the games.
Right.
So obviously I didn't make the games this year. So Monster Games was like my big individual competition this summer.
Right.
And then Metcon Rush popped up in August and I just really liked him and it was a fun event last year and I wanted to support him. So I went out to Metcon Rush in Maryland in August. And then while I was at semifinals, they announced the qualifier for the International Functional Fitness Masters World Championship in Aruba. And International Functional Fitness Masters starts at 30 instead of 35 like it does for CrossFit. So for functional fitness, I'm a Masters athlete.
Right.
And that popped up and I kind of I was looking at it and the deadline.
So that got announced in when was your semifinal? May or June?
May.
So that got announced in May. Okay.
Yeah. So I looked at that and the workouts, they used the age group semifinals workouts. Or quarterfinals workouts, the age group quarterfinals workouts from CrossFit.
Yeah.
And that was the qualifier. And because the 30 to 34 division doesn't do the age group quarterfinals for CrossFit,
right.
Most people hadn't done those workouts, but I did because they were the same workouts as the occupational games workouts.
Okay.
So I had scores and videos to submit and I looked at the leaderboard and nobody else had signed up in that division. So it was, I think it was on our way to semifinals. I looked at Jill, my coach. I was like, hey, you want to go to Aruba? And she was like, yeah, let's do it. So
right.
I was like, I'll see what the leaderboard looks like. because the deadline was the Monday after Syndicate. And I was like, I'll see what it looks like on Sunday night. And, if there's still a good shot, might as well just submit my scores and let's go to Aruba.
Right.
So I looked on Sunday night after semifinals was over, and still nobody had signed up for that division. So I was like, all right, Jill, we're going to Aruba.
Go out, dominate, get the W. That's funny.
So that's how I got into the Aruba competition that I did last month. And then that was supposed to be it.
Before you move on to that, we'll go back to that was supposed to be it. Tell me more about that competition. What was it like traveling to Aruba? Like, what was the competition like? What was it like staying there first? Have you ever been to Aruba before?
No, I hadn't. I had only ever been out of the country twice before. Okay. I went to Paris a couple years ago for a science conference back when I was in grad school.
Hey.
And then I was
Does it still say science nerd in your thing?
No, I didn't have enough characters.
Okay, whoever owns Instagram now, we need to update that. Get more characters. That's got to go back in.
I need my science nerd in my Instagram
Dude,
bio.
that was like that pulled it all together. Super fit and science nerd. But anyway, go back to it. Second time out of the country.
So anyway, my second time out of the country was when I was deployed to Qatar. So had the opportunity to go to Aruba. You look at the pictures, you're like, oh, beautiful Caribbean country. It's going to be so much fun. So we get there and I get to the airport. I go to find my rental car, and it was like a 2002 Nissan something or other. It had like 140,000 miles on it.
Yes.
I was like, I've never even seen a rental car with more than like 6,000 miles on it. This is wild.
Right. Who's driving this shit?
I was. So like this car, and this is like all the rental cars on the island, and all the
it
cars
wasn't like they stuck you with that one. That was that.
They're just old. They've seen some things.
Damn.
So I see the car and I'm like, all right, we're off to a great start. I pull out of the parking lot and I'm driving to the hotel. We stayed at, it was the athlete hotel, quote unquote. So like they offered a discount for competing athletes.
Sweet.
But it was an all-inclusive resort because it's Aruba. So like basically all the hotels are all-inclusive resorts. And at the time I wasn't sure about like how safe Aruba was. So I was worried about trying to book an Airbnb or try to find something cheap. So I was like, I'll just stay at the place that the competition recommended. They've worked out a deal with them. We'll do it. So I drive like 25 minutes from the airport to our hotel, and there's just a lot of desert.
Oh.
Yeah. So it turns out Aruba is actually a desert climate. The palm trees on the island, they don't grow there. They're all transplants.
Oh, shit.
The actual vegetation on the island is a bunch of cacti everywhere.
Yeah.
And so like the only place you see palm trees is the resorts.
Yeah.
And so we got to the hotel, and the hotel was okay. It was kind of old. Some things were kind of like falling apart. It wasn't super great. I was like, I've stayed at better hotel rooms in like a Holiday Inn in the States.
Right. Well, when you go to places like that, they sell you on the tropical resort aspect.
Yep.
And the pictures never scan to the left where you can see all the other stuff.
Exactly. So yeah, it was eye-opening for sure. Not what I was expecting.
Did that throw like your mental prep at all off of the comp?
I don't think so. I wasn't too stressed about the competition, and in hindsight, maybe I should have been, because it was actually more competitive than I was expecting.
Right.
I finished one spot off the podium, and I thought I was going to go in and basically be guaranteed a podium spot. So,
yeah. Well, how did that work out? Since was there people? How did they change the division? Did there end up being people in your division then?
So the qualifier I was talking about was for the US team.
Oh,
so every country with a functional fitness federation gets to send I think it was 3 athletes per division
Yeah.
to the competition. So I was the only female 30 to 34 for the US team that did the qualifier. We ended up picking up 2 more girls so that we filled all 3 spots. So Megan Greenan and Shaylin Laurie competed as well. Shaylin actually finished on the podium. She got second.
Sweet.
So there was, in total, I think there was 19 girls in our division, from like Sweden, Norway, Canada, Finland.
Oh shit.
I don't remember if there was any girls from Puerto Rico in our division. Germany, maybe.
Damn,
so there was
the whole world.
Yeah, basically. And it was really cool actually meeting athletes from other countries. Because I feel like you don't get that a ton in CrossFit, or if you do, it's like they're either Icelandic or Australian.
Right.
So it was really cool. I met some really great girls, made a lot of good friends there. And that was really cool. And so I finished tied in points for 3rd place.
Oh.
And the girl in 3rd, her name is Julia. She ended up taking 3rd on a tie break because they looked at our event finishes and we both had an event win, but then her next best finish was 2nd and mine was 3rd. So she won the tie break and got the podium spot. But she was fantastic. She was an amazing competitor, super sweet girl. I was like, if I'm going to lose the podium to anybody, I'm glad it's her.
Right. What workout did you win?
I won the strength event.
Yeah. What was that one?
It was, so you had a 20-second window to lift, and it was every 2 minutes. You had 1 attempt to lift in that window. That was it. If you failed your attempt, you don't get to try it again. So in 20 seconds, you had 3 rounds of a 1 rep max power snatch. After the power snatch, we went into 3 rounds of a 1 rep max shoulder press, strict press. And then after the press was 3 rounds of a 1 rep max clean, any style.
Did they inform you of that workout or any of the workouts beforehand, or was it all show up and do them?
We knew all the workouts ahead of time.
Okay.
But the only workout that I tested beforehand was the skill workout, which was 2 minutes to establish your longest freestanding handstand hold.
Okay.
Directly into 1 minute to establish your longest L-sit. Directly into 1 minute max rep pistols. I'm out from
and
that one was actually a lot of fun. Looking back on it, if I had held my handstand for 2 seconds longer, I would have taken 3rd overall.
Damn. Oh, wait, were you guys like out of the floor? Was it like every other event? Was there athletes next to you?
Yep. Yeah.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
That's good.
So it was actually pretty cool. I got to do most of the events in the lane next to Shaylin.
Yeah.
So that was cool being able to compete next to her.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I had the longest L-sit in our heat.
How long did you hold for?
I want to say it was like 48 seconds, 43 seconds, something like that.
God, it was like our first day of Advent, we had L-sits, and I was just showing my teen boys like how to do it. I held for like 7 seconds, and I was like, you know what? Like, you guys, this is how you do it.
Shout out to Jill. She has been programming L-sits for me for months now.
Hell yeah.
And that was like my moment to shine. I was like,
right.
I'm prepared for this.
Right. I love when it comes together like that. Oh my God. When you can showcase your work.
Yeah. But yeah, so that skill test was the only one that I actually tested ahead of time, because the week that I would have been testing those workouts ended up actually being a deload week for me.
Damn.
And I tested a different set of workouts because I got a last minute invite to compete at the live showcase for the Zelos Games the weekend before Aruba.
Oh my God. Well, that happened right before. I was like, damn, you're posting a lot of these things. When is this stuff happening? That's a perfect transition. Like, so what was that? The live showcase? And I was reading into it a little bit more the other day. Like, I watched some of the live stream and stuff like that. So there was a live showcase and then also an online portion of it?
Yeah, so Zelos Games, Jared Graybeal started it last year as an online competition. Basically, he wanted to, in a time when a lot of competitions weren't happening or getting canceled because of, restrictions throughout different countries, travel restrictions, event restrictions, all that kind of stuff. He wanted to provide more earning opportunities for athletes without having to worry about travel restrictions, without having to worry about paying for travel, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So he created this online competition where it's very similar to the Open, where the workouts are announced, you do the workout, you record your video, you submit your score, and then they've published the leaderboard.
Right.
This year, they hosted the online competition again, but what he wanted to do was also add a live component to it. So he explained it as basically like a bigger version of an Open announcement. So they announced all 4 workouts, and then they brought 12 males and 12 females out to Vegas to do a live competition of those 4 events over Saturday, Sunday. And that was like the first weekend of the competition window. So the competition window started on Friday, and I think it was like 10 or 12 days total. And then Saturday, Sunday, everybody got to watch basically elite athletes do these workouts just like you would with an Open announcement. And then they get to go back to their gym and do it themselves.
Oh, that's dope.
So it was really cool. So there was a separate leaderboard for the in-person event, but then we also were able to submit our scores for the online competition. If we wanted to, we could have gone back and redone the workouts and submitted new scores for the online competition. I didn't end up doing that because I flew to Aruba the day after I got back from Vegas. But my scores actually held up well enough to take 10th overall.
That's dope.
And I got a 2nd place finish overall in the snatch event. So that was exciting. Got my 15-pound snatch PR.
Dude, who in life PRs a power snatch by 15 pounds? Where the hell did that come from?
That was the squat snatch. That was not a power
was a full snatch. Yeah. Sorry, you had the power snatch, the other one. Who PRs a, I mean, it doesn't really matter. A snatch by 15 pounds? I haven't done that since I started CrossFit.
I know. It was wild. So I think a lot of things go into that. So
and they had that article, what, on Morning Chalk Up this morning about the factors. And I agree with that. Like when I'm setting up classes environments where I'm doing max lifts like that, like you have to create a certain kind of atmosphere, like warm people up in a certain kind of manner that's going to get the blood flowing, but not fatigue them, but keep going.
Yeah. So, and I think some of it definitely had to do with the workout design for that workout specifically. I think it lent itself very well to people PRing their snatch.
Right.
I think the other pieces of it are, I don't normally max out or go for PRs in training. I'm at a point where like really the only time I'm going to go for a PR is usually in competition. Unless I'm like in the gym and something's just feeling really good one day and I'm going for a heavy single, then maybe I'll try for a PR. But those days are so rare that most of the time, the only time I'm going to actually truly go for a max is when it's programmed in a competition. So I had just hit a PR at 200 back at Metcon Rush in August. And before that, I don't know the last time that I had tried to max out my snatch.
I feel like you hit like 185 when you were at Delco the one day. I feel like you snatched something heavy.
Yeah, maybe somewhere around there. I think my max at the time was 195, and I want to say that was from a competition as well, but I can't remember which one.
What'd you snatch at Super Total back at Brandywine? Do you remember? That was
I don't remember at all. That was a while ago.
Yeah.
But I hit 200 at Metcon Rush and I went for 205. I got under 205 3 times in the 30-second window, but just couldn't actually like hit the catch.
Right.
So like obviously the strength was there to lift more. It was just, I think I was just like so amped about hitting 200 that when I went for 205, I like couldn't even focus because I was so excited about 200.
Right. Like you did your goal already.
Yeah. So, and basically since semifinals, I've been putting a lot of work in on Snatch. It's something that Jill and I have just spent a lot of time working on recently, and like heavy snatching,
Right.
not necessarily max, but a lot of heavy snatching and a lot of, pulling strength, a lot of hinging is just something that we've been focusing on. And so that workout at Zelos was just a really cool opportunity to see that all come together. So like I went in hoping for a 205 and maybe a 210 if things were feeling real good. So we had a 3-minute window at the end of the workout. The last barbell was 170. And I knew that if I wanted to hit 205 and I only had 3 minutes, I was going to have to make a pretty big jump for my first lift.
Right.
So I jumped to 190 for my first attempt at the max in the 3 minutes. And 190 just moved so well. I was like, all right, I'm going straight for 205. Like,
oh, that's
that
the best
felt
feeling.
So good.
Yeah.
I feel really confident in 205 right now. So I went for 205, hit 205. I was like, oh, like I just like hit my goal and I've still got, I don't know, 2 minutes left in this max lift.
Right.
So I threw on
Jill
215.
Is Jill out on the floor with you right at that moment?
No, she wasn't able to come out to Vegas.
So you made the call. You were like, fuck it.
Yeah. So I was like, all right, like a jump from 205 to 210 right now just seems like nothing because I just went from 190 to 205. So I was like, I'm going to try 215.
Right.
Worst that happens, I don't make it and I drop to 210.
You got to shoot big if you're going to shoot.
Yeah. So I went for 215. I hit it and it was probably the prettiest snatch I've ever done in my life.
Oh, man.
I caught it in the bottom, solid catch, stood it up, didn't have to take any extra steps. It was like, it was so pretty. I keep watching the video over again.
Oh, I love
that might be the best snatch I ever do in my life.
If I never do this again, I did it right now. Oh, yes. Yo, did your brain go to 225 or you were like, that's the one?
Well, so after I did that, I still had I think I had about a minute left or maybe like 45 seconds. So I was like, all right, might as well go for one more. Like I've got the time. So I threw on 222. I just grabbed like whatever change plates were there and threw them on.
Right.
And I pulled 222. Didn't make it.
That was the one.
Yeah. But the fact that I even pulled 222 off the ground is like wild to me. It's crazy what adrenaline will do, honestly.
Yeah.
Because like so I went into Zelos. I was a replacement for Christine Best. Christine Best had to withdraw from the live competition for whatever reason. And Jared needed another girl to come out for the live event. And so I was added to the roster very last minute. It was like a week and a half before the competition.
Right.
And so Brian Friend did like a roster preview and he put in all of our open quarterfinals, semifinals, games placements. And if you look at the list, I'm at the very bottom because I had the very lowest open rank. It was a bunch of girls that were like top 1 to 200 worldwide in the open. And then I was at like, I don't know, 6'11" or something like that.
You say that's like low, but that's still ridiculous.
I mean, relative to the field that I was competing against, it was significantly lower than everybody else.
Right.
So I was very much like the underdog going into it. You know, I had one of the lowest semifinals finishes. There was like 5 or 6 games athletes there.
I was gonna say, realistically, it's multiple games athletes that are in that crop. Yeah.
And so I went into Zelos with a little bit of imposter syndrome. I was like, I don't know if I actually belong here. I'm just happy to be here.
Right.
Whatever happens. Maybe I won't get last place. But then I knew at the very least that the snatch event would be good for me.
Right.
So going into the snatch event and the fact that the snatch event was on day 2, it was cool because day 1, I had kind of like an unexpected start. It wasn't amazing, but I was like middle of the pack.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is cool. Like
Right.
I'm doing better than I thought I would.
Yeah.
So I got like a little bit of a confidence boost from day one. And then going into day two, I was like, all right, I'm ready to like prove myself here.
Yeah.
And like that was my event. I would have loved to have been in the same heat as Christine. She won the event. She hit a 225 snatch. Yeah, I would have loved if we were in the same heat, because I think that maybe both of us could have snatched even more if we were doing it next to each other.
Yeah.
Because so I was in the first heat and she was in the third heat. And so she saw my 215 snatch, and I was talking to her afterward, and she was like, I wasn't planning on having to go that heavy.
Right.
But then you hit 215.
It's like, strap the belt up. Here we go.
So I think when she practiced it a week or two before, she had hit like 215 or 220. So she PR'd too. 225 was a PR for her. And it was funny. She hit 215 and then she put 225 on, and then she walked over to her husband, Jared. And she was like, should I go for 225 or should I drop to 220? And he was like, no, go for 225. You've got 225.
Yeah, you can't.
So she kept 225. She went and hit 225, and it was a beautiful snatch too. So that was really cool that like,
Damn.
there was enough competition to actually like push her, and then she got a PR out of it too.
Right.
But I really would have liked to do it right next to her. I think that would have been really fun. It's actually what happened with Rose Scott. So she took third in that event. She hit I don't remember if she hit 205 or 207. I think she hit 205. And then instead of going for 215, she went for 217.
I respect it.
Yeah, and like I was talking to her afterward, because I think she was also in the third heat. So she had already seen me hit 215, and I was talking to her afterwards. I was like, "That's exactly what I would have done too." Like,
right.
There's no point in tying. Might as well go for the win.
Yeah, I either want to win or I'm gonna take the loss. You know, but I don't want the tie. You know, that's definitely not what I want.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So you talk about like having this imposter syndrome because you're going against these high level athletes, right? Like, what's it like when you go there and you interact with them? Does the imposter syndrome and a little bit of nervousness affect like your socialization, or do you still socialize with them like they're just another competitor?
The cool thing about Zelos was that all the girls that were there, and the guys too, all the competitors that were there were just genuinely good humans.
Right.
So like going in, I was probably visibly nervous. I think I probably took it. I probably was one of the people who took it most seriously, just because like for the rest of them, it was like, oh, you know, just another training day, an opportunity to kind of see where I'm at. Maybe make a little bit of money. Whereas I'm like, oh crap, I'm standing next to games athletes and I need to not look like hot garbage.
Don't fall on the floor, Aaliyah. Don't face plant.
But it was cool that it was such a relaxed environment, because it was really easy to talk to people. I was nervous at first, but I also like, my favorite thing about competing is meeting people and talking to people, and like the community, the environment. Like that's what I love about competitions.
Yeah.
Like when I was at Syndicate, my coach was having to physically pull me away from people to get me like back to the hotel, to eat, to sleep, whatever. She's like, no, you need to go right now.
We're doing a competition right now. This is for the CrossFit Games. You can't just we gotta go.
But I'm the person that always just wants to stand and talk to everybody.
Right.
And so even when I'm nervous, I still am like very excited to meet and talk to people. And everybody I met there was amazing. There was a handful of people that I had already known, but a lot of the people I was meeting for the first time, and they were fantastic. Just it was really cool to just be in that environment and like actually feel like I belong there.
Right. That's like a
So
big deal,
that was
dude. When you
really
get
cool.
to those rooms and you're like, oh, these are my peers now. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah. Like these people that I like look up to and watch them compete on like a YouTube live stream.
Right.
Now I'm on that YouTube live stream.
Hi, Mom.
And like the fact that I was competing while Brian Friend and Savon were commentating. Like that's so cool to me. And
Right.
and it is a huge confidence boost. I think I came back from Zelos with an even better mindset going into the new season.
Right. That's awesome. So before I go to the rest of the season, specific question. You told me at semifinals they had an athlete liaison, someone that was like the go-to rep for judging stuff, anything the athletes needed. Did either of those comps have those? Zelos and the one in Aruba?
So the athlete liaison at semifinals was it's not something that's required at most competitions because the liaison at semifinals was specifically the liaison between athletes and CrossFit HQ.
Yeah.
Because CrossFit HQ and the event organizers were not the same people.
Right.
So like the judging staff, the head judge, the dispute judge, all those people were part of the event staff and event organizers separate from CrossFit.
Correct.
So the liaison was there, and like the liaison came into play for me when I submitted a dispute to the dispute judge. The dispute judge denied my dispute, but then the liaison saw that the dispute was handled differently for other people for the same dispute reason. So then she went back and said, hey, this needs to be rectified.
Right.
Like from CrossFit HQ, this needs to be rectified. So that was, it's a little bit of a different role that only existed because there were two separate entities kind of like, not necessarily in charge, but like it was the difference between the event itself and CrossFit HQ. So with Zelos was run by Jared and his team. There was no other entity there. Like it was a CrossFit licensed event so that they could use the name CrossFit, but it wasn't directly connected to CrossFit HQ or anything like that. And like they didn't have to answer to anybody. So it was just Zelos. And Andrew Hiller was the head judge. I think all the disputes went through him. There was only a couple of disputes, but they all went through him and he handled all of them with Jared and the rest of the team. And so there wasn't really a need for an athlete liaison. And then the same in Aruba. The competition in Aruba was run by the International Functional Fitness Federation, IF3. And again, there's like that's it. It's them. There's no other entity there that anybody has to answer to. So the IF3 competition, they did have a process for athlete disputes and things like that, just like any other competition would. And they handled the disputes well. I know at least one of our team's athletes got a dispute accepted and a score modified because of it.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being like, yo, that was trash, and they were like giving different calls, and 10 being it was fair across the board for the Aruba comp, how like happy were you with the standardization of things?
I would say the Aruba competition is probably like a 7 or an 8. Definitely some areas to improve on. A little bit of just like making sure all the judges are on the same page in terms of standards and things like that. But they did have, so in functional fitness, they're called TOs or technical officials. And so they had a head TO and an assistant head TO. And the head TO and assistant head TO were walking around the competition floor throughout every event, double checking standards, giving judges feedback, making sure that they were calling no reps when they needed to and all that kind of stuff. So I think it was just a little bit of a learning curve there for them. But for the most part, it was pretty well done.
Now, Zelos, 1 to 10.
Zelos was a 10.
Hey, there you go. Hiller out there, you got it. You did it.
Yeah, and I know people were very skeptical about him being involved, especially as a head judge when he's never been a head judge before.
Yeah.
But I think, and he gave us his kind of intro at the very first athlete brief.
I saw that. I like that, the briefing that he did. He was like,
Yeah.
yo, I'm an internet guy, and it's weird to be in person now and be doing a role that's outside of the internet stuff. So that was cool.
And his whole thing is like, hey, I'm not here to like find reasons to no rep people. He was like, I'm here to make sure that if you look left and you look right, it's standardized across the board. Like that's what this is really about. He just wanted a fair experience across the board for every athlete. Yeah. And I think that they did that very well. And Andrew and Jared and their entire team just took it so seriously. Like they made sure that they were ready when that 3-2-1 go happened, and every judge knew what the standard was, what they were looking for. If there was any question about anything, Andrew was on the floor for all the events, again, talking to the judges, letting them know, like, even I think there was an article about one of the judges, like, I think she gave somebody a no rep and he walked up to her and was like, yes, that was the right call. Like, keep doing that.
Yeah. That happens at things. The head judges will walk up behind you like, good call. At Masters Fitness Collective, I had this girl that, damn, I'm sorry if you're out there. Still, I had this girl, the standard was toes can't go above the bar in your kip for the bar muscle up. And hers were clearly over, like real high. And I was like, dude, I'm not sorry, but I'm sorry. These are all no reps, and the head judge came up behind me was like, good call. And that's the standard. I hope that everyone else was doing the same thing,
Yeah. And it's like, I know Andrew Hiller made a good point about it, and he's reiterated this point a couple times. If there's a questionable rep and a judge calls a no rep, the athlete can dispute it. And if it really wasn't a no rep, the athlete's going to get that credit back.
Correct.
If there's a questionable rep and the judge doesn't call a no rep, there's nothing that anybody can do at that point. The judge already called it a good rep. Nobody can go back and be like, hey, that actually needs to be a no rep. Like the judge made the call on the floor and that call stands. Right. And the only time you can actually dispute something is if it's a no rep. So, erring on the side of this is questionable, take out the questionable movement. And that's our job as athletes, to make sure that we are holding the standard and not giving the judge any reason to question our movement.
Right.
It happened with, I don't remember who it was. One of the guys on the Muscle Up event. I think it was Tola, actually. He got a no rep on his last rep because the judge said he locked out after the clock expired. But what happened was the clock that he was looking at and the announcer that the judge was listening to weren't perfectly synced up. So Tola got a no rep. He disputed his score. They went back and watched the video and they saw that he locked out. I think he locked out before time expired, and they gave him the rep back.
Right.
But if they hadn't done
if it had been reverse, if they had given him the rep,
gave him the rep, and everybody on the live stream hears 3-2-1 time, he locks out, and the judge says good rep, then everybody's going to be freaking out. Hey, that was after the time expired, blah, blah, blah. The judge should have given him a no rep.
Right.
But at that point, there's nothing anybody can do.
Yeah.
So
it's like if you watch the NFL, you see something and you're like, and they do a replay of it, you're like, oh, they missed that call,
Yeah.
The NFL is a little bit bigger, a little bit. And so like sometimes they do have those the challenges, but even those just came in the past few years. The challenges that are outside the coach challenge, the review. So it's the same thing,
Yeah, and everybody gets way more upset when a bad play happens that doesn't get called than when a play happens that gets called and then it gets reversed.
Correct. Exactly.
So like you have to make the call if there's any question about it.
People want to get riled up. That's what it is.
Yeah,
The couch quarterbacks and refs and stuff like that. They want to get riled up.
Yeah.
They want to tell people, "How you messed that up? How did you did your job wrong?" That's what they want to say and stuff like that. What's up next for you? Like, what are you doing through the holiday season? Like, do you have any other like big fitness things going on before the Open starts?
Yeah. So right now I'm just back to regular training. I am competing at Wadapalooza.
Hey.
I'm competing in the RX individual division.
That's dope.
However, my
Is this your first year doing that?
It is. It is. I've never been to Wadapalooza before. However, my training right now is not necessarily to peak for Wadapalooza. My training is to peak for the season. So Wadapalooza will be kind of like a fun experience to just like gauge where I'm at, but it's not the focus of my season right now. Right. Because the focus of my season is to make the games. So finishing out a strength cycle right now, getting into some open prep at the start of the new year, and ready to hit the ground running come February.
I don't know if we've talked about this before. How do you feel your competitiveness like plays out with an online competition versus in person? I feel like most people do say that in person they're much better, but like, how much do you feel like you fall off when it comes to online competition?
I'm much better in person. 100%. When I can see my competition to the left and right of me, it's just that extra little motivation that when I'm, dying on the Echo bike, it keeps me going. And I've been actively trying to get better at that. I've been focusing on trying to embrace the pain cave, especially when I'm alone. With an online competition, it's at least a little bit easier because there's something at stake. Even though you can't necessarily see what's playing out with the other athletes, that there are other people that you're competing against. So it's a little bit easier to embrace the suffering in an online qualifier than it is in just like a regular training day. But I've been working hard with Jill on mindset, on how I approach workouts, how I think or don't think during workouts. I think one of my biggest downfalls is the fact that I think too much when I work out.
I was going to ask, which one do you lie on? You're the overthinker in the workout?
Yes, because anytime I'm doing something, I'm thinking about how this movement is going to affect the next movement, and should I break the reps to save myself and all that kind of stuff. So I've been working on taking more risks in my workouts. And, I think back to like Pat Vellner at Rogue on the last event, the Heavy Grace. Did you see that event?
Yeah, I think I know what you're going to say too. So, I think he talked about it in an interview.
Yeah. So basically he had a chance to secure his top spot on the podium.
Right.
And he took a risk in that workout to keep that top spot, and it didn't work. He ended up failing a rep, and he may have even failed 2 reps. And because of that, he lost the podium altogether. He ended up in 4th. And like, he was talking about it after the fact, and he was like, yeah, it stings, but like, it was absolutely the right decision, because at that point, you're not there to play it safe. Like, if you're not taking risks, you're not competing. And he's like, I'm a competitor at heart, and I'm going to put myself out there and take these risks, because if you don't, like, what's the point?
Yeah.
And he was like, if I didn't take that risk, I always would have thought back and thought, what if, and, been disappointed that I didn't try it and see what happened. And I think, and I've been the same way. Like, I've looked back on things and just been like, man, I wonder what would have happened if I just took a risk there. And it's not a good feeling to have.
Right.
So I am trying to set myself up to not be in that position anymore, and to know that I truly did everything I could.
Do you remember the last like kind of risky thing you did in a workout? And like not like risky like I might get hurt, like risky like oh this might not pay off.
Yeah. Metcon Rush last year. The very first workout was DT with bar muscle ups. So every round you started with 4 bar muscle ups, and then you went into a round of DT, and it was 5 rounds per time. I was in the lane next to Callista.
Oof.
And her and I were basically like neck and neck. Going into the final round, I do my 4 bar muscle ups unbroken. And as I'm coming down for the 4th rep, or no, I think I fell off the bar on my 4th rep and because I went for the 4th rep and I lost my grip and I had to go back up and do my 4th rep. We get to the barbell and I have, I don't know, maybe like a 1 rep lead on her or something like that. So I'm like, all right, I got to hang on. Like there's no option here. Cause if I drop
break
bar,
DT up before that, were you like breaking it up?
I think I went unbroken the whole time up to there.
Okay.
And I was like, if I drop this bar, she's like, that's it. She's going to beat me.
Right.
So I do the 11 deadlifts, drop, regrip, do the 12th deadlift, and I go into my 9 hang cleans. And I think I got to like 6 reps. And as I was coming down for my 7th rep, I hit my thighs and tried to clean, and my grip gave out. I lost the bar. It flew out.
Oof. One of those moments, dude.
Yeah, it was a mess. And she ended up beating me in the workout because of it.
Yeah.
But it was one of those things where like I couldn't not do it because if I dropped the bar intentionally, she was going to beat me anyway. So it was either get beat because I intentionally dropped the bar, or maybe get beat because I lose my grip, or maybe not because I don't lose my grip. Let's find out.
Yeah, yo, I love that. I mean, you want to go out in the blaze of glory, right? Like dropping the barbell, like
and that, like I have had moments of that, but that is where I struggle. Where, you know, I might do the intentional fumble because I don't want to hurt as bad anymore.
Right.
But I've started to realize one thing Jacob told me a couple months ago was we were talking about wall balls actually. And he was like, once you get past like 70 reps, it doesn't hurt anymore. Like it doesn't hurt more the more you go. Like, right. It's just gonna hurt. Like dropping the ball at that point doesn't help. Yes. And so I've started to apply that in a lot of things that I do where I'm like, hey, if I stop now, it's not going to get any better. It's just going to prolong the time that I'm hurting. So like, might as well keep going.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's something I try to apply on like the Echo bike, because the Echo bike and the assault bike, you know, the faster you go, the faster, like you accumulate calories exponentially faster. Right. So it actually benefits you to go faster and maybe die a little bit more, because you're also exponentially increasing the rate that you accrue calories. Right. And so it's one of those things when I want to slow down on the Echo bike, I'm like, oh, you know, just slow down a little bit to save yourself. And I'm like, no, because if I slow down a little bit, that's going to increase the time that I'm on the bike, and it's not going to pay off in the end. So I might as well just keep pushing.
Right. Hell yeah. I try to tell that to people all the time. And when I'm working out, it's hard. Sometimes you could get to that state where you're like, okay, if I could just get up to this peak output and hold on to it, right? Like when we were doing the wall walks the other day, it didn't hurt. They hurt. It didn't really hurt any more, like any extra doing them. It was getting it started, right? Yeah. I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to, my brain was thinking about the pain instead of my body feeling the pain. I'm like, okay, I'm making it worse by hurting, resting, thinking about hurting, resting, and then hurting again, you know, instead of just moving through it. But, I mean, we'll have to put that to the test with the more than 70 wall balls. I've been there very few times in my life to know what it feels like after the 70th one. Like, let's see the difference between 70 and 71. Like, oh my God. So Wadapalooza though, coming up with that, you're going out to that for the experience too. And then the Open's right around the corner, dude.
Yeah.
Are you ready? All right. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm excited. I'm ready for the season. I'm curious to see how it'll play out with the new North America regions. I think being in North America West, it's, I think, objectively less competitive, which is cool. But then that also means that we will most likely get probably significantly less qualifying spots than North America East. So it's a trade-off. And I don't know. I'm excited. It's gonna be an interesting season.
How many semifinals are there now for the West, North America West?
Just one.
Just one? Oh,
yep,
shit.
One semifinal, 60 male, 60 female.
And they're not doing any like, oh, you would have, if you were in the West, but you would have qualified from the East, come over here and get the spot. It's like where you are is where you are. You're going to this semifinal.
Yeah, there's some specific rules in the rule book. It talks about like how you know, and when you register for the Open, it tells you what region you're in. But I think for most individuals, it's based on the address of your affiliate. If you are unaffiliated, it's based on your home address. And then North America East is kind of like the catch-all for like if you're military overseas, but you're an American citizen, you qualify or you compete in North America East. There's a couple other categories. And then now they have the opportunity for people to apply for exemptions so that they can compete where they live instead of where their citizenship is. So like somebody like Dennis Samsonov, who's in the US on a DACA visa, and if he leaves the US, he would not be allowed to come back in.
Right.
So like he can apply for an exemption to compete in the North American semifinal. But I think in that case, I think he would compete based on where he lives and where he trains, which would put him in West. But then also somebody like Roman Krenikov, who now lives in Cookeville, you know, obviously it's kind of up in the air whether or not he'd be able to make it back if he went to Russia for a semifinal or went to Asia for a semifinal. So I'm assuming he will apply for an exemption to compete in North America as well. Or somebody like Guy, who lives in the US, things like that.
I forgot he lives up in Mayhem too.
Yeah.
But last year he went down to the South American.
Brazil.
I forget what whatever.
It was.
Yeah, I was gonna say it had a name to it. Yeah, that was dope. What about predictions for programming? Are we gonna do more of the same and keep pushing the envelope like Boz did last year with the change, or do you think it'll be like more of 2017, 2018 style programming?
I think Boz is always looking for new ways to make it exciting. I think one of the things that will be cool is the fact that CrossFit is programming everything now, including semifinals. It will truly be like a progression throughout the season.
Yeah.
And so I think that'll be really exciting. I'm sure he'll come up with some crazy stuff for the games this year.
Tell me, for the Open, do you think we see a repeat? Because there was no repeat last year, right?
Yeah, it's hard when there's only 3 workouts.
Yeah.
When there was 5 workouts, it was a little bit easier to justify doing a repeat. But I think if there is an opportunity where a repeat fits in the programming the way he wants it to, I think he would do a repeat. But I don't think he's going to base the programming around a repeat, if that makes sense.
It does, yeah. Like he's not going to work backwards and say, all right, this is my repeat. This is the only things that I need to do. He's going to say, all right, these are the things I want to test. Let's figure out how to do it regardless of what workout we do. Like, we don't need to be beholden to an old workout, you know?
Yeah. Exactly.
I enjoy doing repeats, but I'm all for new workouts. I hated last year's Open from the standpoint of me doing the workouts, but I thought it was a good test of the worldwide Open. You know, when you put it in those circumstances, I think it was a good test of that. I mean, I don't think I'm ever going to doubt Boz. You know?
I do like how with the new structure, they've kind of moved to like the Open is a little bit less skill, less heavyweight, And then as you go on to quarterfinals, you add a little bit of skill, add a little bit of weight. And then I think when we get to semifinals, it'll be a little bit more skill, a little bit more weight. And then you get to the games and it's going to be a lot more skill, a lot more weight, which is what we saw last year. And so again, if a repeat in the open works for that, it's cool to do a repeat and like see for the general community to see the improvements that they're making over the years. Like that is a really cool like cornerstone of CrossFit, is being able to see those improvements with the benchmark workouts. But again, it gets harder when there's only 3 tests and you're talking about trying to make a qualification pipeline to find the fittest in the world. You can't necessarily I don't know the right phrasing for it, but you can't necessarily tie yourself to a repeat just for the sake of a repeat.
Right. Just
when you're
because that's what we've always
done by
done.
the right people. Yeah.
I mean, people, they get nostalgic and that blinds them sometimes,
Yeah.
This is what we've always done. This is what we should keep doing. And that's nowhere in anyone's rule book ever, anywhere. This is the way we've done it. This is the way we have to do it.
Yeah.
I think it's just silly. Well, like I said, I love a repeat too. I enjoyed it the years past. I liked frickin' Dave posted pictures of fish and shit like that for the. But like the Open was fun last year in the same kind of way, and Tia still won. That still happened. Like we got a good race at the end of the game, so it all went down.
Yeah.
When you retire from competitive CrossFit, as at least in the instance that you're doing it now, do you see yourself continuing to do the CrossFit Open? Probably,
yeah. I do think it's a really fun experience with the community. Getting to, like, we do Friday Night Lights at Cobra Command, and it's so much fun to see everybody there, to see them doing things that they didn't think that they could do. People were getting their first bar muscle ups last year, their first pull ups, like anything. Yeah. And so it is a really cool community experience. I think it will probably take some time when I do eventually like stop trying to compete. I think it'll take some time for me to be like mentally okay with not trying to be the best.
Right.
But I do think that I'll probably still continue to participate in the Open.
Hell yeah. We're just going to say, PSA out there, gyms, do Friday Night Lights, have your people sign up for the Open. People, especially coaches and gym owners, do the frickin' Open.
Yes.
Like, do
it's
it.
So much fun.
Like,
there's no other experience that compares to the CrossFit Open.
Swallow your pride. If you feel like you're going to get bagged up from the RX workouts, do them scale. Just do them with your people.
Yeah.
Do it. PSA over. All right, dude. So I've asked you this a million times now. What are you hungry for next?
I want to make the games.
Hell yeah. Let's go. Last year we got the semifinals. We keep moving the goalposts. Games now.
Yep.
So I want to ask one last question about the mindset thing. You get to that point where you don't believe in yourself. What do you do? How do you reevaluate afterwards? Like, not in the moment. When the comp's over, how do you say, why was I nervous? Like, I've earned the right to be here.
Yeah, I mean, I think, in retrospect, it's just looking back at looking back at where I was 4, 6, 8 months ago, last year, 2 years ago, and seeing all the progress that I've made. It's really hard to see the progress on a day-to-day basis. But if you actually stop and, think about like, I did cleans a couple days ago, and I was really excited because I was doing doubles at 200 and they felt good. And I felt like I was cleaning well. And I sent the video to Elena, and she was like, that's awesome. But like, I'm most impressed by the fact that that's 200 pounds and you were right back on the bar for your second rep.
Right.
I was like, I didn't even think about that. Like, if I was doing doubles at 200 6 months ago, it would have been hit one rep, wait 20 to 30 seconds, and then go for the second rep. And I was doing doubles at 200 with like literally drop the bar, bend down, pick it back up, like not even a second to think about it. And so it's just realizing like it might not always be PRs and things like that, but there are, like, it might not be PRs in terms of like, oh, I lifted more weight this time, but it might be PRs in terms of, hey, I didn't rest between sets that time, or I did that in less sets this time, or I didn't have such negative self-talk this time. And just recognizing those improvements and reminding myself that even though it's hard to see day to day, I am still continually improving. And, you know, going to a competition like Zelos and keeping up with everybody and not looking like I didn't belong there. Like that was really cool to see in retrospect, to kind of look at myself next to games athletes and say, hey, I move just as well as games athletes.
Right. How often do you give yourself like that, I don't know, breath to appreciate how far you've come? Like how often, I guess I should say, how often do you like look back and see your progress? Because you get so, you're in it and you're like, I'm in this, I'm doing this. How often do you actually like look back and be like, damn, 3 years ago I was here. I would like 3 years ago, I never even would have said that my goal was to make the games, you know?
Yeah, I think for me, I do it a lot because that's how I keep myself from just feeling completely beaten down and destroyed in my training. Because a lot of times training doesn't go well. And, you know, as I improve, Jill has to adjust my training to keep pushing me forward. And so training is never going to be easy. It's always just going to get harder as I get better. But it's just like, when things go bad in a workout, I always afterward try to say, okay, like that didn't go how I thought it would, but here's what went well, or here's what I learned from that.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it is comparing to where I was a month ago, 6 months ago, a year ago. Yeah.
That's awesome to be able to look back and be like, all right, this is what I was doing then. It's working, or I need to adjust, you know, this is what I need to do. But like you're dedicated like to the actual path, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's sweet. Well, it's been another awesome episode. It's like, I feel like I've been looking at a screen with you for 8 hours now over my total lifetime. Yo, when are you going to get back to podcasting, bro? You got to get back into it. Angelo called me out on his last podcast about me getting back into it. I'm going to call you out on mine about you.
I know. I just don't have the time and energy to dedicate to it right now. Like if I do it, I want to do it well.
Right.
And I don't have the time to put into it to do it well right now. I think once I am past this phase of, you know, trying to make the games and trying to compete at the highest level, I'll probably get back into it, but I just don't think I have the bandwidth for it right now to also be able to go all in on my training and focus 110% on that.
Right. All the eggs in one basket. All right. We'll let you off the hook for that then. We'll see you, you know, in what's 2022 right now? We'll see you in 2030 back to the podcast. All right. After a couple of games appearances.
Yeah.
All right, dogs, this has been Ellia Miller here again. We'll figure out a funny name for this episode. We're going to get out of here now.
Thanks,
Peace.
Taylor.